Hi, how are you?
Good. How have you been in the last few months? I haven't seen you for a long time.
Very nice.
So my hair is overgrown again, so that's why I'm coming back.
Good. I give you nice
So
haircut.
I have a little bit, of a story to tell you, just like the last few times
All right.
I came to the shop. All right. So today I wanted to talk about the hero of a nation called Bangladesh. It's a country in South Asia, and the name of that person is Bangabandhu. That's actually his nickname. His real name was Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. So he was the hero of his country, but he was born very poor. In a district called Tunjipara. So he was born in 1920 in India, which was owned by the British. So him and his family were very poor because of a series of events that had happened to them in the last few years. So he had to work with what he had. So eventually, around the 1930s, he got the heart disease. I believe it was called bulbul, and he got an eye disease called glaucoma, and that affected his sight so much that he had to wear glasses for the rest of his life. So he had to delay his studies for 3 years, making him older than many of his classmates, which would play a huge role politically in his life later. So around the 1930s and the 40s,
আর যদি আমার লোকের উপর হত্যা করা হয় তোমাদের উপর কাছে আমার অনুরোধ রইল প্রত্যেক ঘরে ঘরে দুর্গ গড়ে তোলো তোমাদের যা কিছু আছে তাই নিয়ে শত্রুর মোকাবেলা করতে হবে এবং জীবনের তরে রাস্তাঘাট যা যা আছে সব কিছু আমি যদি হুকুম দেবার নাও পারি তোমরা বন্ধ করে দেবে
he moved to a town called Madaripur, and there were two very important politicians in his area that were coming to that town. They were named Hussein Sohrawardy and A.K. Fazlul Haq. So they were both ministers of his local area, and so it was very important for him to for the entire town. So he set up a volunteer brigade leading to this event. And since he was the oldest of all of his classmates, because because of his studies being delayed, that meant that he was able to be the leader of this brigade. So, regardless of what others' religions or beliefs or age even was, he allowed them to all join and come watch the event happening. Alright, so this is where he first started meeting two very monumental people.
Not too small, right?
Later in his life. Yeah, I want it a little smaller. Still really big. So he would meet two important people who would be very important later in his life. Something in my nose. Hussein Sohrawardy would specifically become a mentor to him in his later years. In 1941, oh geez, it's alright. In 1941, the day before his matriculation exam, he became extremely sick with a 104-degree fever. There's a strip of hair on my nose.
Nose itchy.
Okay. And his father stayed up all night trying and make him feel better. But even with the best doctors of Bengal, sorry.
More or? That's good?
Yeah.
Alright.
Ew.
You have long hair.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't come earlier. So anyway, so now around like 1943, there was a huge famine where he lived. So that meant that he had to gather people around for a conference. And with his leadership skills, almost all of the influential politicians accepted. Some people called in, telegrammed them, and tried to dissuade them from coming. But eventually, everybody attended the conference. So, Mr. Surawardi from earlier started opening kitchens to feed the poor and decided to deliver them a meal at least once a day. So, this is where, in 1950s, he started what was called the 6-point movement. In 1947, the British had left India, so there were two new countries called Pakistan and India. But because of where the Hindu majority regions were, Pakistan was split into two exclaves which were not interconnected. So they were called West and East Bengal. Bangabandhu lived in the East sector, and the East sector was often mistreated and ignored. God, there's hair on the nose again. So, no, it's fine. So, eventually, he tried to come up with something that would make it fair between both the West and the East sector. And with the help of those in the Awami League, which was his new political party, he was able to create 6 points that were related to giving the East sector more autonomy.
What's after?
Yep. So eventually he was put in jail and arrested a lot of times by the Pakistani authorities because of his rebellious mood and tactics. And many people would protest and riot when he was put in jail. One time he was put in jail for conspiring with fellow Bengali politicians in India to break up the country. It was called the Agartala conspiracy case. And I don't want to interrupt this.
All right.
None of his points were
Clean your face close. After you can continue.
okay. So these 6 points were rejected by the Pakistani government when he suggested it to them in a conference. So he got many people to protest on it, and eventually Pakistan started genociding the citizens of the East sector because they were getting too many ideas. It was called Operation Searchlight. So approximately 7,000 people were killed in one night. So that caused protests to skyrocket, and Bangabandhu led the movement for an independent Bangladesh. There was a 9-month war between Bangladesh and Pakistan, which ended with India getting involved and on Bangladesh's side, and Bangladesh winning. So Bangabandhu became the first president and did many important things for the country, such as getting it recognized by the UN, fixing its economic problems. However, eventually, he had to start putting on some tight restrictions. And eventually, a select few group of people indiscriminately assassinated him and all of his family members that were in their house at the time. His successor was one of his daughters who was abroad on vacation at the time of the shooting. So that's my quick story. So let me look in the mirror for a second. Nice. All right. Thank you, Boris.
Thank you too.